Hello everyone, my name is Mendy Shozi and I'll be taking you through the Biogeochemical Cycles talk. If you look at the hierarchy of models, we'll see that we're at the point where we have now introduced life. The Earth is a system open to electromagnetic radiation from the Sun and outer space, but it is virtually a closed system with regards to matter or nutrients. This means that the planet has minimal flux of matter. Unlike water in the amazing water talk you saw earlier, the nearly unlimited supply of energy from the Sun means that the energy doesn't need to be recycled for the planet to be habitable. However, all forms of life on Earth need nutrients too, but nutrients are finite, which means that they can be used up and the planet would not be habitable. Therefore, matter that Earth contained from the time of its birth is transformed and circulated geographically. As you can see in the diagram, matter is cycled through abiotic and biotic components of the planet. This is in line with the law of conservation of matter, which states that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be transformed, including the transformation between matter and energy. Which brings us to the topic of this talk, biogeochemical cycles. If we just break down the word biogeochemical cycles, we see that bio, of life, geo, which is of the earth, chemical, which is in reference to elements such as carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, and then you have cycle, which is a series of change which comes back to the starting point and which can be repeated. And if you look at the previous image, we'll see that biogeochemical cycles may also be referred to as cycles of nature because they link together all organisms and abiotic features on Earth. The working definition we'll be using for the sake of this presentation is that biogeochemical cycles are the pathway for the transportation by which a nutrient moves through biotic and abiotic components of Earth. And by compartments of Earth, I'm referring to biosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and the atmosphere. One is the sphere which has life and is called the biosphere, and it is the region occupied by living organisms such as plants, animals, and fungi. And then you also have the lithosphere, which is the region occupied by soil, land, and the Earth's crust, atmosphere, which is air and space, and hydrosphere, areas covered by water, such as rivers, lakes, and oceans. However, where the biosphere overlaps the lithosphere, atmosphere, or hydrosphere, there is a zone occupied by living organisms. There are different types of biogeochemical cycles, and we'll run through them, through 5 of them real quick. The hydrological cycle, which is also known as the water cycle, is the most important chemical of life for all living organisms on Earth. Water in the atmosphere is usually in form of vapor, but condenses to liquid water and can solidify when temperatures are 0 degrees Celsius to form ice. 93% of water on Earth is in solid state, mainly comprising the ice caps and glaciers of polar regions. Next, we have the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen gas is the most abundant element in the atmosphere, and all the nitrogen found in terrestrial ecosystems originates from the atmosphere. The nitrogen cycle is by far the most important nutrient cycle for plant life in particular. Carbon is one of the most important elements that sustain life on Earth. Carbon dioxide and methane gases, compounds of carbon, in the Earth's atmosphere have a substantial effect on the Earth's heat balance. It absorbs infrared radiation and hence may contribute to global warming and climate change. Phosphorus is commonly found in water, soil, and sediments, but it cannot be found in air in the gaseous state. This is because phosphorus is usually a liquid at standard temperatures and pressure. Phosphorus is mainly cycled through water, soil, and sediments. However, very small particles in the atmosphere may contain phosphorus or its compounds. Phosphorus moves slowly from deposits on land and in sediments to living organisms, and much more slowly back into the soil and water sediment. Therefore, the phosphorus cycle is the slowest one of the sedimentary cycles. Lastly, we have the sulfur cycle. Sulfur in its natural form is a solid and restricted to the sedimentary cycle in this form. It is transported by physical processes like wind, erosion by water, and geological events like volcanic eruptions. However, in its compounds such as sulfur dioxide, sulfur can be moved from the ocean to the atmosphere, to land, and then to the ocean through rainfall and rivers. So why are biogeochemical cycles so important, and why do we need to know about them? I'll look at 4 different reasons. Firstly, biogeochemical cycles enable the transformation of matter from one form to another. This transformation enables the utilization of matter in a form specific to particular organisms. For example, humans utilize water in liquid form, and then through the hydrological cycle, water vapor is condensed to liquid and ice is converted to liquid water. Hence, humans can now use it. Biogeochemical cycles also enable the transfer of molecules from one locality to another. Some elements, such as nitrogen, are highly concentrated in the atmosphere, but some of the atmospheric nitrogen is transferred to soil through the nitrogen cycle, and this is in fact a biogeochemical cycle. Number 2, biogeochemical cycles facilitate the storage of elements. Elements carried through the biogeochemical cycles are stored in their natural reservoirs. A reservoir is a place or region where a biogeochemical element is in its highest concentration. However, when elements are only stored for short periods of time, they are being held in exchange pools. Thus, elements can be released to organisms in small consumable amounts. Biogeochemical cycles assist in functioning of ecosystems. An ecosystem is a system that properly functions in a state of equilibrium, and whenever any imbalances occur, the ecosystem, through the biogeochemical cycle, restores to the equilibrium state, and this may take a while. So you could say that biogeochemical cycles link living organisms with non-living organisms, and vice versa. This is because all organisms depend on one another, and most especially, the biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem are linked by flow of nutrients engineered by biogeochemical cycles. Lastly, biogeochemical cycles regulate the flow of substances. Since the biogeochemical cycles pass through different spheres, the flow of elements is regulated because each sphere has a particular medium, and the rate at which elements flow is determined by the viscosity and density of the medium. Therefore, elements in the biogeochemical cycles flow at different rates within the cycle, and this regulates the flow of the elements in those cycles. As I said earlier, water is quite an important biogeochemical cycle and an important element. The water cycle is powered from solar energy, where more than 85% of the global evaporation occurs from the oceans, reducing their temperature by cooling by evaporation. Without the cooling effect of evaporation, the greenhouse effect would lead to a much higher surface temperature in the planet. While the water cycle itself is a biogeochemical cycle, the flow of water over and beneath the Earth's surface is a key component of the cycling of the other biogeochemical cycles, such as nitrogen and sulfur. Runoff is responsible for almost all of the transport of eroded sediment and phosphorus from land to water bodies. Both runoff and groundwater flow play significant roles in transporting nitrogen from the land to water bodies. Runoff also plays a part in the carbon cycle, where it's transported from eroded rock and soil. The salinity of the oceans is derived from erosion and transport of dissolved salts from the land. Lastly, eutrophication of lakes is primarily due to phosphorus, applied in excess to agricultural fields and fertilizers, and is then transported via water over land and down rivers. There are many other biogeochemical cycles that are currently being studied for the first time, as climate change and human impact are drastically changing the speed, intensity, and balance of these relatively unknown cycles. These newly studied biogeochemical cycles include the mercury cycle and the human-caused cycle of atrazine. The climatic conditions determine the speed and the lifespan of the biogeochemical cycles. Scientists are still investigating the pathways that biogeochemical cycles take and how human activity has affected these cycles. There are still many questions that are unanswered. However, it has been argued that the absence of human on Earth will not guarantee the stability of biogeochemical cycles. The reason advanced is that life has existed for about 3.5 billion years, and a complete breakdown has not occurred since oxygen became available, approximately 1.5 billion years ago. Change is a part of natural biogeochemical cycles, which results in periods of abundant biota and periods of scarce biota, both in terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. So in conclusion, we learned that Earth is a closed system that cycles its nutrients, and it's a closed system with regards to matter, but is not a closed system with regards to the energy it receives from the sun. Biogeochemical cycles govern the functioning of planet Earth, as we learned in the four important reasons of why biogeochemical cycles are important. Nutrients are cycled through Earth's spheres, and as we learned, water is one of the most important elements that helps in cycling nutrients through the Earth's spheres and helps in the other biogeochemical cycles, such as phosphorus, nitrogen, and sulfur. And we also learned about the 5 main biogeochemical cycles that are listed there, and also that there are new biogeochemical cycles that are being studied, such as the mercury cycle and atrazine cycle, that have been brought about by human impacts. So as you can see, biogeochemical cycles are important in making Earth habitable, as they're able to link biotic and abiotic factors of the Earth. Thank you for listening to my talk. The following talk is on biogeochemical feedbacks. Don't get too confused. It's similar to my talk. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.